This week on the final episode of At the Movies, Julia Roberts leads a group of mercenaries on a mission to... Wait a minute, that can't be right.
No. She stars in Eat, Pray, Love.
This is my no carb left behind experiment. I'm going for it.
Also coming up this week...
Are you crazy? Could kill me! You're welcome!
Sylvester Stallone's The Expendables. Any more testosterone in this thing, and the screen would sprout hair.
What are you doing? Getting a life.
Plus, Michael Cera faces all kinds of trouble in Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Where's your big red suit and beard, Santa? You just gave them a gift.
And we pay tribute to more than 3 decades at the movies.
You want to go away for a year? I used to have this appetite for my life, and it is just gone. I want to go someplace where I can marvel at something.
Julia Roberts is a globe-trotting spiritual seeker in Eat, Pray, Love. I'm A.O. Scott of the New York Times.
And I'm Michael Phillips of the Chicago Tribune.
We'll start off our very last episode with the big screen version of a book millions of readers have embraced, Eat, Pray, Love, Elizabeth Gilbert's memoir about a year of spiritual questing in Italy, India, and Indonesia. Julia Roberts is Liz, a New York writer who bounces from a painful divorce from Billy Crudup through an unhappy rebound relationship with James Franco off into the wild blue yonder. In Italy, she eats.
I'm in love. I'm having a relationship with my pizza. You look like you're breaking up with pizza. What's the matter? I can't. I mean, you can't. This is pizza margarita in Napoli. It is your moral imperative to eat and enjoy that pizza.
In India, she prays, or rather meditates and feels sorry for herself, and also meets a grumpy old guy played by Richard Jenkins. And then, on the magical island of Bali, love comes knocking in the person of a studly Brazilian named Felipe. He's played by Roberts' fellow Oscar winner, Javier Bardem.
We should go to the best restaurant in town.
Of course.
My place.
Subtle.
Eat, Pray, Love is a movie about confusion, ambivalence, and pain, sweetened by exotic locations, abundant flowers, and delicious-looking food. It's not something that will change your life, but it is smart and honest and admirably sure of itself, and worth seeing for those reasons.
No, it's a skip it. It's easy to watch. It's a nice travelogue. And the only thing I would say is that the third part is best. It works best because I'd say sex with Javier Bardem in Bali is inherently more interesting to the target audience. To the target audience than
I wouldn't argue.
Celibacy on an ashram in India. That's less interesting, and that's why the middle, I think, is going to be the challenge for moviegoers.
The middle has Richard Jenkins, who's wonderful.
He's got the best 5 minutes in the picture. It's the only stuff that really feels like emotionally
That sounds like
honest.
you actually might like this.
No. I had the same objection to the book, but the book was well written enough to kind of get you over it. At the end of this year-long journey, this round-the-world tour, and all these fabulous meals in Rome and all that, I'm just kind of left with what's the price tag on this? This is a solution to a serious spiritual quest, if we're to believe Gilbert's book, that only 0.110% of the population could ever...
That's just a bogus objection. I'm sorry. I mean, there are plenty of movies that are about people who live in impossibly lavish and privileged circumstances that no one else can even imagine. You know,
those are screwball comedies.
Well, or they're Marie Antoinette or whatever. And this movie actually does have... But it has a real core. It has a real problem, and it has a real idea that I don't think you see very often in movies, which is the tension between this character's desire at long last to be free, to be autonomous, to find this self that she's only ever defined in relation to men, and the desire to be loved. And the suspense at the end is a very unusual thing, because the tension between these two desires is really well sustained, and I think really intelligently and even realistically.
The third part is enjoyable just on that sort of under the Tuscan sun level of, you know, fantasy romance. It's fine, and the actors are clearly up to the task, but I just feel like it's a showcase for a movie star to kind of swan her way through a spiritual journey that feels like it's absolutely on the surface.
It's a chance for a movie star to, yes, I mean, the movie is beautiful to look at. It is a travelogue, but she does burrow deeper into this character's emotional life, and it's a very satisfying performance.
She's good enough, but everything else is
The
not.
movie's good enough.
Coming up next, Michael Cera brings his deadpan and his mad fighting skills to the romantic fantasy Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Does that mean we can make out?
Sure. Scott Pilgrim?
Hi, I was thinking about asking you out, but then I realized how stupid that would be.
That's okay. You just need to sign for this, all right?
So do you want to go out sometime?
I say yes, will you sign for your damn package?
So yeah, 8 o'clock?
In his zombie movie, Shaun of the Dead, and his cop movie spoof, Hot Fuzz, the British director Edgar Wright proved himself to be one of the few contemporary writer-directors with a real facility for visual comedy. The proof continues with Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, based on a series of graphic novels by Brian Lee O'Malley. They're about a dweeby young Toronto lad in his early 20s, played in the film by Michael Cera. Scott Pilgrim is in a band and tentatively dating a high schooler when he falls hard for the tough chick of his dreams, played by Mary Elizabeth Winstead. One catch.
If we're gonna date, you may have to defeat my 7 evil exes.
You have 7 evil ex-boyfriends?
7 evil exes, yes.
And I have to fight... Defeat your 7 evil exes if we're going to continue to date?
Pretty much.
The film spins its wheels in the final half hour, which is too bad. And you might wish Ramona, the Winstead character, had 4 or 5 evil exes to defeat rather than 7. But the battles are inventive, the film is very quick on its feet, and Wright has figured out the tone. In this summer of formulaic blockbusters, here is a fantasy with a deadpan comic edge you might just go for. I did. I say see it. Good.
I agree.
Succeed.
It's really original and imaginative and inventive. One of the few movies I've seen that combines video games with, you know, live action, quasi-realistic filmmaking in an interesting and fresh way. I mean, I'm not a big video game player, but I thought the way that he's grabbing extra lives and the way that when he defeats these exes, they turn into a shower of coins, which he goes and picks up, was very...
And it's very clever. Right from the opening credits where you hear the Universal Studios logo with that familiar theme done in this very tinny late 80s arcade. It's clever. Edgar Wright has made not a bad film yet. I would say he's got a penchant for, you know, 15, 20 extra minutes he doesn't need. I hope he kind of learns a little bit of economy as he explores his invention.
Too many endings, but such a fresh, witty, fast style, and some really good songs, too. Scott Pilgrim's band, which is called Sex Bob-omb, they play songs composed for the movie by Beck.
And those transitions, the visual transitions between scenes are just like they are in the graphic novel, but they're not just replicating the storyboarding. It's like finding a new cinematic way and getting a laugh with it, too.
And it's self-conscious in the way that the characters are self-conscious about themselves. It's in a way very modest and unassuming, even though it's very inventive.
Won't be for everybody, but it's clever.
Yeah, it's a nice movie. Coming up next, Stallone, Schwarzenegger, Willis, Statham, Chuck Norris was busy. It's a virtual who's who of action stars in The Expendables.
Well, I got 3 pieces of work. 2 a walk in the park and 1 to hell and back.
So, we are working for the agency.
I gotta recon this island first. The only thing you need to know is the job's real and the money's real.
The Expendables describes itself as a film by Sylvester Stallone, and that pretty much says it all. Once again, Stallone liberates the oppressed masses of the third world and kills a whole lot of people in the process. But this time, he's got lots of help. Dolph Lundgren, Jet Li, Jason Statham, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and for a few minutes each, Bruce Willis, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Mickey Rourke, who goes all misty on us.
I don't want to die all alone, full of holes in the mud and blood. If I die with something that counts, I'm going to die with a woman.
These guys are so sensitive. They just want to help people, and they use whatever tools happen to be at their disposal.
You want the money? Go get it. What's that?
Get a text.
Excuse me?
Now that early scene is actually fairly restrained. The bloodshed is very intense in The Expendables, and in the last half hour, the picture lets go of its always shaky hold on narrative coherence and just lets fly with the fireballs and the bullets and the testosterone. Statham punches a guy in the face when the guy's already on fire. Terry Crews launches an artillery shell at a helicopter with his bare hands. Yeah! This movie is blunt, dumb, and crude, but not without a certain leathery charm. I laughed quite a bit. Enough to say that after a hard day at the office, you might want to open up a light beer, slap on a fake tattoo, fire up a cigar, and rent it.
I would actually, I would say see it to that review. But I would say the movie is fun in theory. I don't think it's leathery. It's more like a trip to the Naugahyde outlet store. These guys are beyond leathery.
I actually thought it was like a trip through the cooling room at a Chicago steakhouse. I haven't seen so much air-dried, aged beef.
Yes,
a lot of beef.
Yeah, I sat through so many Golden Globus, Canon Pictures classics from the 80s and 90s that had more. Those had more honest, low-down entertainment value than this. I think a pretty self-conscious attempt to get that old style and feeling back. I just think Stallone isn't much with action as a director behind the camera, and he loves the close-up that is from the eyebrow to the upper lip only, and that interspersed with fireballs, interspersed with beheadings, makes kind of a
I guess so,
drag.
but this kind of reminded me of you know, a reunion tour of a rock band that everyone's forgotten about that hasn't had a hit in 25 years.
Foghat.
Yeah, it's like the Foghat reunion tour, and there's a certain amount of fog and a few
the fog of war, baby. This is the fog of war.
But, I mean, I had a pretty good time, partly because it reminded me of those old, somewhat better.
I wanted to, but Stallone's goodwill with the audience is still there, and the other guys too, and maybe that's enough to make it a hit. It's not very good, but maybe that's enough. Coming up next, it's time to say goodbye. We look back at 35 years at the movies. Goodbyes are never easy if what we leave behind had any value at all.
This is the last episode of At the Movies, the end of an amazing run that began 35 years ago on public television with a couple of Chicago film critics named Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert.
And this is Roger Ebert, the film critic from the Chicago Sun-Times. And right over here is Gene Siskel, the film critic from the Chicago Tribune and Channel 2 News.
The idea was simplicity itself. Two people talking and frequently arguing about the latest movies. The show quickly grew from a novelty into an institution. And in 1986, Gene and Roger moved to Disney's Buena Vista Television, which has syndicated the show ever since. Generations of moviegoers grew up watching Siskel and Ebert.
They were outspoken supporters of the movies they cared about.
You know, there are people who, when they hear documentary, they think, they'll back off. You're going to find these guys more interesting and fully written in the ways that we're always knocking pictures for being underwritten. Here are two exciting characters.
They had some memorable arguments.
Roger, you're wrapping yourself in the flag of children, and I'm saying go see The Black Stallion instead. There's a film with Little Di that's so much better.
I'm not wrapping myself in the flag of children. You're wrapping yourself in the flag of the sophisticated film critic who's seen it all.
No, boredom with Benji running.
It's amusing, it moves, and somewhat to my surprise, I liked it.
Wow, where's your big red suit and beard, Santa? You just gave them a gift.
You didn't like this movie?
No, they could always surprise each other.
It's just one special effect after another, and it's boring because the story is not interesting and the characters are not sharply drawn, and Travolta does not make a convincing villain.
He's a sweet guy.
He is.
And that's why he's a star. It doesn't work. You know, as you say this, I don't think I've ever done this on this show in 20 years, but I'm going to twist my thumb. I'm going to go just like this because
I talked you into it.
Well, listen. I'm changing my opinion now. Do me one. No,
I'm amazed.
I know you're amazed. Do me one favor.
Yeah.
Look in the camera and say I was wrong about Cop and a Half. It wasn't a very good movie. Burt Reynolds.
No, I won't do that.
What?
No, I won't do that. Listen, I saw things in Cop and a Half that I admired.
That no one else did.
Okay, well.
And they reminded us that film criticism isn't just about analysis and debate. Ultimately, it's personal.
I can remember when I was in high school. That's a long time ago.
Yes.
When I was 14 years old, a girl wanted to break up with me. And you know what she told me? She said, she likes you. And the moment that I heard that, I just turned away to the one who did like me, you see, because I was such a pushover for the fact that I was being accepted. I think there's something of that in everybody at every age. That one of the most amazingly attractive things about a woman, Gene, is the fact that she likes you.
Well,
that makes her attractive.
Well,
shows what good sense she has.
Yes, I can't argue with that. Can't argue with that at all. I don't know what that has to do with the movie, except that we now know what happened to Roger at 14.
Tony, in the summer of 1980, I was working at a factory, and I was working with people who saw their first subtitled film because of Roger Ebert and Gene Siskel. I think when you talk about the rap the show sometimes takes about dumbing down, criticism too reductive with the thumbs up and down, I look at it from a different perspective.
Well,
it mainstreamed film criticism, and it brought up kind of a different audience into films, all kinds of specialty and art house and foreign language films they would not have otherwise seen.
Well, it widened the appeal of, I mean, if you think about, you know, Hoop Dreams, which we saw there in a clip, the films of Spike Lee, a lot of the important indie movies of the 80s and 90s got a much wider hearing in the culture from Roger and Gene than they would have just in newspapers. It democratized it. It opened it up to the point that now, you know, you have the noise and argumentation of the internet where you have 100 flowers blooming in angry contention. And I think that's, I mean, people, you know, worry about that sometimes. Does this mean that criticism is losing its authority or whatever? But no, it's about everybody getting together and having a focal point for an argument. And Roger and Gene were that.
And it was a different time. The media landscape we could not recognize today. When you had two voices for a diverse kind of film and a wider array of choices than people knew they even had, that really meant something.
What I remember is an episode, I don't remember from exactly when it was. They devoted a whole episode of the show, Roger and Gene, to the career of Tom Cruise. And they looked at Top Gun and Cocktail and Risky Business and Days of Thunder. And the thing that really struck me about it, watching it then, when I was much too much of a snob to care about Tom Cruise, is that they took him seriously as an actor and as a movie star and showed how you could take a popular medium seriously without being solemn and somber.
If you have the right critics calling attention to the right things and they don't cry wolf and they actually hold their standards, you can do a service.
And they were the right critics. But in 1999, Gene Siskel passed away and Roger kept the show going with a series of guest hosts and then with Richard Roper, his colleague at the Chicago Sun-Times. Ebert and Roper mixed it up in the balcony for about 6 years.
You have the Force.
He's a Jedi master.
If you encompass the Force, you don't need no laser saber.
You're going up against another Jedi dude who's also got super
just kind of go like
powers.
this.
No, well,
you're Yoda. Nobody can stop you.
Well, he was being stopped mentally, so he had to go to the physical stuff.
Okay.
It's a lot of fun, and there's a lot of great action sequences.
Okay, well, I'm sure that a lot of people will agree with you.
When Roger became ill in 2006, Richard forged ahead for 2 more years with various co-hosts, including a film critic from the Chicago Tribune.
It's probably as bad a film as this talented writer-director has ever made. I mean, this sits there like The Village did, and it's almost...
I like The Village. That's an underrated film, too.
Good, good. We have a consistently good taste critic here.
And one from the New York Times.
That would be a thumbs down.
Off with your head, Mr. Roper. I thought this movie was completely delightful and charming and very kind of touching, too.
When Richard left the show, Ben Mankiewicz and Ben Lyons filled these chairs.
And if you want a movie like this to be grounded in reality, it has to seem believable.
We don't have the time to do it here, but I think many of the criticisms which you levied in your main review are actually fairly easily explained away.
And that brings us to the present era of the show, or as some like to call it, the revenge of the nerds. Of course, a lot has changed since the early days of Gene and Roger, but some things have not.
Wherever and however we choose to experience them, the movies challenge and delight us, and for many of us, a lively, passionate conversation about movies is one of the great pleasures in life. For those of us lucky enough to have those conversations for a living, this show has always meant more than we can properly express.
That's certainly true. We'll be back in a moment with some final thoughts.
Closed captioning for At the Movies is sponsored by
Icebreakers Mints with icy cool flavor crystals. Icebreakers. Stay cool.
On this, the final segment of At the Movies, we thought it would be appropriate to ask a question that the late Gene Siskel was often known to ask. What do you know for sure? So, Michael, after a year of hosting this show and 35 years of watching it on and off, what do you know for sure?
It's a solitary pursuit in many ways, film criticism. And to be able to turn what is a private act into kind of a more public debate and, inquiry has been just stimulating for me, and I hope useful to people out there. There's enough goodwill on the way in and really kind of an amazing amount of goodwill on the way out now that makes me think, we did all right.
I think so, and there was also a lot of really interesting pushing back. When we came down and panned The Blind Side later on, when we both panned Shutter Island.
I never panned The Blind Side. I would never do that.
Oh, you're rewriting history now.
Yeah.
But, and we got a lot of emails and letters letters, and people were angry and provoked by it. And I think that that's great when you can get a rise out of people, when you can connect with stuff that people care about.
The whole tradition of this show is truly the opposite of the ivory tower, because you can't wear the sweaters Roger and Gene wore in an ivory tower. You know, this is about a different kind of forum, and it's been great fun to try to figure out how it suits us.
Well, it's been really fun, and I can't think of anyone I would rather have done it with.
Thanks.
Wrong as you've often been.
Oh.
It's been great.
So, wherever the conversation continues to take place, in newspapers, online, among a group of friends spilling out of the theater on a Friday night, for Tony and me, it's been a great privilege and pleasure to have it right here with all of you. We hope goodbye is not the end. And Tony, I don't think there may be a future of this double act.
I certainly hope so. It would be a lot of fun. There's a lot more that we have to say.
I don't think it's over.
And a lot more movies to see. But in the meantime, to the host who started it all back in 1975, we say thanks for the memories and for a great tradition devoted to a great popular art form. Without the movies, life would be a little less beautiful.
And thanks to you, the viewers, for joining us at the movies.
Activon, powerful pain relief.
Activon for joint pain, muscle pain, arthritis, and backache.
Activon, powerful pain relief.
Activon, powerful pain relief.
Experience Nicholas Sparks' best story yet. It's the perfect movie to share with your daughter. The Last Song on Blu-ray Combo Pack and DVD.
Clinically proven Mederma lets you do something about your scar, so you can move on with your life and leave your scar behind. Mederma.
Non-X Nail Gel for clear, healthy-looking toenails. Non-X helps remove discoloring keratin debris in the foot care section at drugstores, grocery, and mass retailers.